Howdy folks, Hot Damn here. I'm going to talk about the primary, secondary, and deployable weapons in Galahad 3093 Beta 9. Let me flip over to an empty spot here. Okay, so we're looking at our primary weapons to start. The Wraith. The Wraith is a short-range laser. It'll obviously shoot out longer range because it is a laser, but it does less damage the farther it goes out. It is an energy weapon. There are three types of damage in the game. Energy does better against shields. Explosive does better against base deployables like generators and turrets. And it does even damage against lances. And then kinetic, you can see explosive there. Kinetic does better against armor. Gets bonuses to armor. So three different types. Wraith is your laser short range killer, as it says. Never been a big fan of it, but early on in the betas, a lot of people ran it, and it did very well. They've tweaked it and nerfed it down a little bit since then. It does have some new reflecting beam mods to it that will allow you to bounce your laser off corners and around things to trick shot people or trick shot generators if you want. I don't normally use it. I've seen a few people use it recently that did pretty well with it, but yeah. Catapult is your grenade launcher. You can see simple and effective. It's one of the cheaper weapons in pretty much every loadout. I believe it's cheaper. The weapons do go up in cost as the lance size goes up. So in a light, you can see 165 is the cost for this, but it's a little bit different. If you go up to, say, a medium. Where'd you go? So 210 on a medium. So just for comparison's sake. Catapult's going to do explosive damage. As I said, that does better against the generators and the turrets at bases, and it does even damage against lances. No bonus, but no disadvantage either. Does have a small firing arc, and you have to kind of get used to the play. I have trouble playing a catapult with other weapons, just because, like, say you're using a Phalanx and you're kind of wanting to aim in the direction. Well, a catapult, you have to arc it a little bit, so you're having to fight back and forth. A lot of people that I do see using catapults use them akimbo in pairs. And keep in mind, when you akimbo things, they cost 150 points more than they would. It doesn't do anything, but it penalizes you for using two of the same weapon. But most of the catapult users I see do use two. For mods, you have the big boom and the bigger boom. I don't know why they call them both big boom. I would call it bigger boom. You can see it changes it from a burst to automatic mode, and increases damage per projectile, and it gives you a bigger explosion radius. It's very easy to kill yourself when you're using this, especially if a lance gets up in your face and you're trying to fight them off. You can do a lot of damage to yourself, so you have to be careful with that. But I do know a few people who use catapults to great effect, and they are fun to play with for a short to medium range type of weapon. Inferno is the first of the big belt-fed guns. You see that's a kinetic weapon. Kinetic just took a small nerf in Beta 9 across the board, but after playing through them, I didn't notice really big change to their damage. Armor has gone up and shields have gone down across the board. Shields are the same across all the lances now, where the armor varies. The light has the least amount of armor, where the heavy has the highest amount of armor. Medium and super heavy are about the same. So kinetic weapons are really kind of the bread and butter of where you're going for, because you have to eat through that armor, where the shields are a bit easier to get through. So kinetic is the first round of that, and then the new Inferno mods give you a bypass for the shield, so you go straight to armor, which is interesting. I didn't really get to play with it in Beta 9, but I can see where you might can game that or be able to go super heavy kinetic damage and try and just skip over those shields. With the shields being nerfed down, I don't know. I probably wouldn't do it, but there probably are ways to game that I don't know about yet. Brimstone, he is another kinetic machine gun, 20 millimeter machine gun, different flavor than the Inferno, very similar, but this is getting the mods for the new shredding mechanic. So shredding is basically a certain amount of your damage, so 6% of armor damage is shredded, which means you can't easily heal it. You have to do certain things to heal it. It shows up as a red piece on your armor or shield, depending on which one got shredded. Like your buddy can't come along and easily heal you with that unless he has a certain mod. You can't easily Corvus it unless you, the repair drone, unless you have a certain mod. So it's meant to make it where somebody just can't get in a fight, like a one-on-one, win it, heal back up to full, go get another fight. It penalizes you for keep doing these fights. If you keep getting shredded down, you'll be less and less healthy as you go into the second, third, fourth fight or whatever. The Javelin is next up. Javelin is your sniper rifle, essentially. It's an energy weapon. It is charged, so you hold down the button, it fills up like this little side-to-side counter, and then when it gets to max, if you release it, that's where it fires. If you play it without the mod, it's essentially exactly what you're pointing at. You can zoom in and try and hit, but most people that I have seen are using these guided shot mods, so you can see it homes in, so you have to be locked on kind of in a general area, but you don't have to have the crosshairs right on the person. You'll get a little red square around the person when it's locked on, and then you hold down the button, it fills up the bars, you release it, and it seeks that person out and pops them as long as they haven't gotten completely out of your line of sight. You can see the mods, really the difference between them is how much the damage is reduced. So you can get 75% of the full Javelin damage using the top tier mod on that. Most people using Javelins use them in pairs, akimbo. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody use one and use something else. It's possible, but having done a few close range Javelin fights this past weekend in Beta 9, not where you want to be. You want to be up on a hill, popping people, hiding behind shields and using LOS and generally doing what a sniper does. Next up, we're looking at the Pike. Pike's the old school shotgun of the game. It's kinetic damage. The big difference on it, the recent mods that came in and a couple betas ago, becomes fully automatic, so you can hold it down and it just keeps firing. It does have a charge shot on it. You can see the rate of fire changes as you go up with the mods. But normally it's a charged weapon where you hold it down, just like we were talking about with the Javelin, and it reduces the spread and increases the range. Pike has been adjusted along the way multiple times. I still see a few people use it to great effect. I wouldn't say it's the most common weapon out there these days, but I do see people still use it. Hellfire, one of my old favorites that I don't use anymore. Explosive damage. This is firing dumb volleys of rockets in an area. You can very easily kill yourself if you're shooting at things very close to you, a lance, a generator, a wall, whatever. That damage bounces back on you. So you have to really watch it using these. A couple betas ago, these were used to great effect with the old coordinated defense mods that would lower your damage to yourself to, like, it was 90% protection, so you only took 10% of the damage. That's been tuned down a lot, so even if you run that now, you can very easily kill yourself with a Hellfire. But I see a lot of people use these if they get up on a hill, particularly on certain maps. They'll spam the capture points, so you can keep the other team from capturing the base by just spamming the living crap out of the capture point with Hellfires and secondary weapons and things like that. So they do still have their uses, and once in a while you'll still see somebody use them up close. But yeah, the tuning of coordinated defense has really changed how Hellfire is used. The mods for that you can see are mostly blast radius. So you get a wider blast radius, spreads it out, good for capture point spamming. Banshee is next up on the list. He is in energy. Burst kind of goes in hand with the Gatlings. A lot of people run Banshee Brimstone combinations. I use those a lot on my heavies. Think of just a Gatling gun type of weapon, but it's energy damage instead of kinetic like the others. The mods on him are the shield shredding versus the armor shredding that we saw on the other. That does lower the magazine capacity where you can't shoot as many without reloading. And last but not least, everybody's favorite Phalanx. This one is similar to the Hellfire, but once the rockets fly out, I don't know, 10, 15 meters, something like that, they will start homing in on the nearest target. So a lot of people that don't want to have to deal with aiming or want to fight, Phalanx is the king of kind of medium range fighting. It does have a 350 meter hard cap to what it will shoot. If you try and shoot it past that, the rockets just pop and they don't go any further. But anything within that, say 10, 15 meter to 350 meter distance, it'll auto home and hit them unless they can LOS it. It does do pretty good damage, especially if you're using the super heavy where you get double the weapons. So normally people will run Phalanx in akimbo as well. They like the super heavy build. I will run double Phalanx, and then the mods on it, this is the one that kind of everybody hates. This one allows you to do essentially trick shots. You don't have to even see the person. So say you're standing up on top of a building and somebody's down below you, you can point over the edge without even seeing them shoot, and the rockets will actually go out and then home straight down and go hit the person, or they can even home around corners to a certain degree. You don't have to have line of sight to make them work, so they've become kind of the easy point getting weapon that I would say a lot of people use. Lower skill, but that doesn't mean they don't have a purpose. I like to use them if I can catch people fighting somebody else. I like to use them to add damage. Like you can basically shoot over your own teammates and the rocket pods will home in and go down and hit the person without dealing any damage to your teammates. So you can use them in tighter quarters where like the Hellfires would just destroy the other guy and your teammate if you were flying, shoot those into them. So it does have its purpose. I expect it to get tweaked some more, but it is what it is. So I would call that the trick shot mod, and then the other mod kind of lowers the ability to home as well. It's not as agile, but it does give you extended range so you can shoot it farther. And that covers all of the primary weapons and their mods. The secondary weapons, let's go back over to light so we can. Secondary weapons are the shoulder mounted weapons. So notice up on this light, there's nothing on top. If I go in and add in, you can see it pop up there. So these are the shoulder mount weapons. You would fire your primary weapons left click and right click, and then the secondaries are control left click and right click. So let's start at the top with the Quaternid. The Quaternid is a kinetic airburst weapon. You're going to have a flavor of each type of the damage, the three damage types for these. Quaternid, Draconid, and Lurid are the three. They're essentially the same type of idea, except that their mods are going to be a little different. So you'll see explosive shredding, does 40% armor is shredded, 40% of shield is shredded. These are really good for laying down fire like on capture points, similar to what we were talking about with the Hellfire. Let's skip and we'll go to Draconid. Same type of idea, except the Draconid does explosive damage, and his mods put down fire on the ground, very similar to the Knight K's ult ability, its Q ability. So it lays down fire all around, and if you stand in the fire, it's just a bad idea, and it will do damage to you. And then the third one is the Lurid. He does the energy damage, so he's the third type of that, and you can see he makes an electrical patch, so very, very similar to the fire from the Draconid. That's the 3 types of those. They all do very similar things, just different damage types. Parados is your defensive shoulder mount. It automatically fires, and it works. It's for shooting down incoming missiles. So let's go down and look real quick, because these two kind of go hand in hand. The Griffin is really what the Parados is built to counter. The Parados does not work well in countering, say, the Phalanx or the Hellfire. The Hellfire is going to fire out just a ton of little rockets. The Phalanx does the same. So the Parados is going to shoot a few of those down. He's going to run out of ammo, and you're going to get hit by the rest. Not what he's built for. He's really built for stopping this Griffin, which is a warhead, essentially a steerable missile, a guided missile, if you want to think of it like that. So the Griffin is going to do explosive damage. He is really good for killing generators. We'll usually use them, the guys who run as cappers, myself included, that are running around in lights and stuff, attacking generators and taking bases kind of behind where all the big guys are fighting at. We'll use Griffins in pairs because you can fire them off and pop generators really quick. They can do a lot of damage to that. So the Parados is your intelligent missile defense system capable of auto-targeting, intercepting, and destroying incoming projectiles. So he'll knock out Griffins as they're coming toward you, unless the person shooting the Griffins at you has akimbo Griffins. If they're running akimbo Griffins and they fire 2 sets of Griffins at you and you only have 1 Parados and you don't move, you're going to take a ton of damage. Griffins hit hard. So Parados, think of anti-Griffin. You could run Parados and akimbo too to stop it, but most people I've seen usually use 1 Parados to kind of slide that in there to protect them against a random Griffin coming in. And then Recurve is the last guy. Recurve is what you're going to see most of the brawlers using up front. It does kinetic damage, and it's auto-targeting, auto-firing. So Recurve and Parados are the only 2 that function fully on their own. You don't control them at all. The rest of them you have to actually aim and shoot with, depending on what they are. The three brothers, let's call them, the Quaternid, Lurid, and Draconid, all have kind of an arc similar to the Catapult that we were looking at, the primary weapons, where the Griffin kind of fires up in an arc and then becomes steerable once it makes it out a certain distance, say 20 meters or so, maybe a little bit shorter than that. And wherever your crosshairs are, that's kind of where it's going to go. And it's an art to aim the Griffin as it's flying through the air, but if you play with it, you kind of get used to it. Go back to the Recurve. Well, actually, let's look at the mods real quick for Parados. We skipped over that. So the Parados has gotten new mods to be able to destroy people's drones. So the Corvus, or the attack drone, the Parados will not aim at those, and the incoming missiles from the Griffin. And real quick on the Griffin, his mods, he's got a proximity detonation now, and you can see there's 3 flavors of it, but essentially when the Griffin gets within 15 meters of an enemy or the target, it's going to explode on its own. So you don't have to have super great aim, but you're paying for those mods. You know, the cost of those mods, $180, and you get a little bit extra magazine, but you get that kind of area detonation where you don't have to be right on with your aim. And you don't have to worry about, like, say if the person's standing out in the open, it's a little harder to hit them than if they're up against a wall where you can hit the wall behind them and that splash damage is going to come back on them. Returning to the Recurve is what the brawlers are going to use. It's auto shooting, so it just kind of does its own thing. You can mod it to where it will also hit enemy deployables, generators, and base turrets. So that's handy. The deployable mines that have been tuned lately to be more useful, a lot of people will mine teleporter pads and turbo pads and things like that, or entryways they know people are going to go through. The Recurve with this mod on will actually kind of warn you that that's there and start shooting it before you even get to it. So it's handy for that. It's handy for if you're running, say you're running like belt-fed weapons like a Banshee Brimstone type of setup and you want some extra damage when you're killing generators. You put that mod on there, super cheap, 10 and it'll help you by shooting the generator where normally it would just sit there and wait for a lance to roll up before it would do anything. It'll also shoot at Hounds, the rolling bowling balls of doom that we'll get to in the deployables. It'll shoot at those. So the recurve is nice because it kind of gives you warning of, hey, there's something down there that you may not know about, particularly with those mines. And I believe that covers all of the secondaries. So once again, you can have an akimbo penalty for the secondaries, 150 points. You can see akimbo right there. He's going to cost 315, where he would normally only cost 165. See akimbo, 150. So there is a penalty to doing that, but a lot of people do it because they will run akimbo because it's worth it to their particular play style. The last section we'll go over here with the weapons is the deployables. So you've got the Spartan Shield. This lays down a shield in this shape. It's particularly good for blocking doorways inside bases if you're trying to either run from somebody or funnel them to a certain place, prevent them to getting to a generator, something like that. I've used it a lot I'll have, kind of more of a repair build going on, and I'll have super killer lance guy chasing me down and boop, drop a shield in the doorway, and all of a sudden they're staring at you from the other side of the shield, yelling at you, and they can't do much about it. Some of the new curve shield, you can kill it, say they can't do much about it, but it has 10,000 health, so it's not something you can easily kill, we'll put it that way. Some of the new mods has a curve shield, so you can kind of hide inside of it. I've seen people put themselves in like a cylinder, put a shield on one side and a shield on the other, and they're stuck in the middle. I'm personally not a huge fan of it, but it's niche. I like being able to block the doorways more than what the curve shield gives me. This one is interesting. I've played with it a few times. It actually puts a shield in front of you that kind of just sticks on your body 5 meters in front of you, but it's smaller. So think of running around with a shield in front of you like a knight. What I've run into the few times I've tried to use it is my guns couldn't get past it. I think I was using it on a super heavy Javelin playing with it, and the guns couldn't get past it. So I would essentially use it to defend myself, but then I couldn't fire back, and I would end up shooting my own shield to get rid of it at some point. But there are other builds, I'm sure, particularly with secondaries, that you could use that with that would work better. And it may work better on the heavy, too. It may have just been how the super heavy was laid out when I was playing with it. So that's the Spartan. So there's the Sentry is your good old drop-down turret, and it shoots at whatever is nearby. This one does kinetic damage. There's a new version that does energy damage called the Sentinel. Relatively the same thing, just different types of damage. You can see this Sentry has a mod that'll bypass shields. 40% of damage bypasses shields, so a little extra armor damage for that one. And real quick to look at the Sentinel, like I said, same idea with energy damage, and he shreds shields as he does it, if you want to use his mod as he does his damage. So the Hounds are interesting. I call them the bowling balls of doom. It's been a joke in Galahad for a while we'd like to make. These, you drop them down, and they roll around the ground looking for a target. So think of like a rolling mine, essentially. They're slow and they're a bit unwieldy, especially if you're in a quick mech like a light or medium, even a heavy, or like a NIM heavy. You can get around them if you know you're there. Some people get caught by them because they're too busy fighting and they don't notice them on the ground. What a lot of people will do is as soon as they see them come out, they'll kind of charge through you and past you, and the Hound's going the other direction, so they have to slowly turn around and come back. But they work pretty well in certain situations. Some people will use like a Hound vending machine and set up and drop them at a place, wait for somebody to walk up, and then all the Hounds fly to them and they explode. It does have a mod that it highlights the target, and I think that even affects to a certain degree Morgan, who can go invisible, so it does some stuff with that. You can send enemy locations back to its owner's lands. I haven't played with that much, but yeah, it does that. Next we'll look at the Caltrip. It's the good old mine. It wasn't used a lot, I would say, before maybe the past month or so. It had a much shorter duration. It had like a 30-second duration. It was used before that with, like, throwing it on the ground and shooting it, and they ended up changing some things and tuning some things, the devs did, so it wasn't being used for that. But now what I see people doing is dropping these around teleporter pads and turbocharge pads, and yeah, if you hit these, they sting quite a bit. They do pretty good damage, 2,500 damage. You get a pile of them, you're really in a world of hurt. And they can mod to give a higher blast radius. And then the big one does 60% damage, so they hit even harder. So yeah, that's a thing if you want to do a little mining of a base or mining of a well-known passageway, things like that. Next, we'll go into the drones. So we have Corvus drone is the repair drone. He flies around behind you, not particularly fast. You can easily outrun him. So when you want to use him, you don't necessarily want to be going full speed or flying around or jumping or anything like that. But he will fly behind you and repair your armor. He is very fragile. You will get blown up if you deploy him in a fight. But sometimes I'll deploy him anyway just to get people to shoot at him and not me. For mods, he has a distance mod. I've heard of people like leaving him to repair a generator and then going somewhere else to go repair another generator, say. And then he also does shred repairs. So all that shred mod damage we've been seeing, he'll actually repair that, where not everybody can repair that without a certain mod or this mod to let him do it. And then we have the Falcon, who's kind of the opposite. He's the attack drone. Kinetic damage, same type of thing. His mod gives him 400% range, so he can fly around and go attack anybody around him. He's essentially running the same type of gun as the Sentry mod up here. He just flies around where the Sentry's immobile and sits wherever you leave him. And then the Torchlight is the last mod. He is a mobile spawn beacon. So you can take him and drop him, and other people on your team can spawn on top of him. Exactly what it looks like. And then his mods, if you spawn in on that Torchlight, you come in for 5 seconds or 15 seconds and you're stealthed. Or you can come in and you get basically speed boosts, skim speed, walk speed for 8 seconds or 20 seconds. So that covers all of the deployables, all the secondaries, and all the primary weapons. This is a Galahad 3093 as a beta 9. This will change, and this is not gospel, but this is what it looks like at this point. All right, thanks. See you all on the field.